conscious about everything. And I'm not talking about men and women only, because it is it's this thing that we have the same value as any human.
Absolutely.
I'm not talking about that we should be the same, because there is a huge misunderstanding there, I think, between men and women. We are not men. We shouldn't act as men. We should act as women, but we should also adopt maybe in some ways more masculine manners, but in a feminine way. And so should men do. There is this balance between the two sexes, and how we express things. And we are coming from an old paradigm with old programming, like where competition and do has been in the focus, very masculine energy, starting to bridge over to something more feminine, divinity, promoting and inviting people to have connections instead, co-creating instead.
Yes. An enormous welcome to the Power Talks. Firstly, thank you for being here. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for giving me your time from my heart. It's really, really lovely to have you here. So this is my new podcast, my first podcast, and we are going to examine what it is that prevents women from being able to access and express their personal power, especially women who speak English as their second language, or their third or their fourth, right? As that is absolutely, definitely an extra barrier. So I have some amazing guests in this series, and I cannot wait to introduce you to them. My sixth guest is the extraordinary Jessika Klingspor. Jessika is based in Barcelona and has been since 2001. She's a Swedish entrepreneur and change maker who has played a pivotal role in linking Nordic innovation to Barcelona's dynamic ecosystem and innovation hub. So she's currently serving as a transformational coach, specialising in inner growth and conscious business through values. She is the drive behind the IDG Barcelona Business Hub, which is part of the global movement of inner development goals. We talk about this at length. Jessika's aim is to bridge the IDG framework into the corporate space to create the new leadership paradigm that is very much needed. So she recently launched her Conscious podcast, which provides a space for truthful and meaningful conversations where stories of inner shifts are shared. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Her motivation lies in contributing to a sustainable future and curating impactful endeavours that transcend the realm of business. Jessika firmly believes the future is conscious. So we have an amazing conversation. We talk about many, many things. Jessika's relationship with English, her love of languages in general, and the power that her mother instilled in her from a really early age, that she had the belief that she deserved a seat at the table. So we talk about the value that each human has, regardless of gender, of course. And we touch on the masculine and the feminine, and how they inform the way that we communicate. We then start to talk about being conscious, which moves us on to the incredible Inner Development Goals project that Jessika is heavily involved with. It's a movement that looks at how we are going to tackle the severest problems of our times. Jessika very generously tells us her personal story and the events that lead her to an awakening, really, a deeper understanding of her purpose. And we also talk about the importance of finding your tribe. It's a great interview. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah.
So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you so much. I'm going to take my neck bracelets off because they jingle. Yeah, thank you so much. It's really, really nice. It's super cool.
Yeah, it feels super cool. And nice. I love the studio too.
Yeah, it's a great studio.
Yeah.
No? It's good. It's fun.
Good vibes.
All right. Good vibes. That's what we want. So I'm going to ask you really quickly just about your relationship with English, which is just for my regular listeners, because everybody, I guess, the people that will listen to this will be people who speak English as their second language.
Yeah.
And I know that it's your second, third. I mean, how many languages do you speak? Lots.
Well, four good ones,
okay.
But 5, yes.
Okay.
French is still. I forgot a lot about my French since I live in Spain.
Okay.
But it's my mother tongue, Swedish, and then it's English, and then it's Spanish, and then it's French.
Mm-hmm.
I don't count Scandinavian languages because, we were born with those.
Right, okay. They're not on the list.
No, they're not on the list.
And so with your relationship with English, I know that you're comfortable in English, aren't you?
Yeah, but since I grew up in Sweden, it's a small country in the middle of nowhere in the north. So well, at the time when I grew up, it was 7 million people. Of course, we know that we have to learn English in order to reach out to the rest of the world.
Right. Okay.
To open the doors worldwide. You can't live with Swedish. It's very limiting.
Right.
So
okay.
everybody in Sweden speaks from a very early age. We learn English in school.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And we don't have dubbed here, like in the Southern Europe.
Yes.
They dub.
Yeah.
So
of
we
course,
are accustomed to hear English in the original version in TV. There is no dubbing.
Yeah. So it just becomes really natural for you.
Really natural.
Yeah. And so then when it comes to expressing authority or showing your expertise or even having influence, and power, that's what I'm interested in. Like, is that something that you found with the language in English? You didn't have any issues
because I really feel
really?
comfortable with the language, and I love languages, and I loved starting to speak English, and I listened to records, and I learned all the lyrics in English, and so from an early age, English was just part of my growing up.
Yeah, right, okay. And then so when you shifted into being a professional, going from a teenager, a young woman or whatever, into becoming a professional, that was an easy transition to make.
It was for me because I started to work in hotel management.
Okay.
And we were 76 nationalities in SAS Scandinavia Hotel, so English was the language.
Yes,
so already after, I took a sabbatic year before going to university.
Yes.
And so I got this work in Copenhagen, in SAS Scandinavia Hotel, and it was like, the world was in one place. It was amazing. So I didn't have time to go back to university after that.
Right, wow, okay.
It just went, one thing led to another. But so English has been like with me since day one in my professional life.
Yeah.
I was also born with this travel bug, and I wanted to explore and travel the world.
Yes.
And what's opening the doors to everything? It's English.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was like parallel. Both personal life and work life became English as the centered language.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So then, in terms of your experience as a woman, how do you think that has impacted on your ability to express authority?
Well, I've always been very expressful in general. It's also have to do with your upbringing. My mother is a strong lioness, and she since early, actually she talked to me even when I was in her belly. She was telling me that I would be able to do anything that I want in life. Everything was possible.
Okay,
and so throughout my upbringing, I think she gave me that authority unconsciously. And I just adopted it into English. I just took for granted that I also have a space at the table, in any table. And I've always tried to take that space as a woman as well. And of course, I've had my share of difficulties walking uphill.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like the world looked at, like the world we live in. It's been and it's still an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been many women that paved the path before I started to walk it. But I mean, I've been happily co-creating this path with a lot of women in business and making sure that we have a seat at the table.
Yes. And then once having that seat, this is what I'm really interested in, right? Is how we use it. Yeah,
and it's like it's never really for granted. Even if you have it, there is still this. You have to be conscious about everything. And I'm not talking about men and women only, because it is. It's this thing that we have the same value as any human.
Absolutely.
I'm not talking about that we should be the same, because there is a huge misunderstanding there, I think, between men and women. We are not men. We shouldn't act as men. We should act as women, but we should also adopt maybe in some ways more masculine manners, but in a feminine way. And so should men do. There is this balance between the two sexes and how we express things. And we are coming from an old paradigm with old programming, like where competition and do has been in the focus, very masculine energy, starting to bridge over to something more feminine, divinity promoting and inviting people to have connections instead, co-creating instead.
Yes.
Where there is room for, achievement, relationship, integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is this is where you and I, we align a lot on this topic, right?
Yeah.
And it's what I'm really interested in exploring in this podcast generally is different ways that we communicate, and how the way that we communicate has to evolve to allow for changes that need to happen in the world, right? And that will we need the type of communication that will facilitate change.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that there is this shift happening at the moment. It has been for a while and will continue to happen.
Well, I'm a true believer that the future is conscious. I believe that we can, raise awareness and focus on self-awareness. I mean, global change starts with self.
Yeah, yeah.
And the connection to yourself.
Yeah.
And how we deepen that.
Yeah.
And then before we step out and have the connection with others. And I think to have these conversations, at least me, I'm aiming to reach the leaders, the future leaders, change makers, entrepreneurs, but people who wants to make a change in the world. Because if you reach to them and have these conversations about how can we do this, it will be a bigger ripple effect.
Yeah, yeah.
In teams, organizations, and from top in the pyramid and down.
Absolutely.
I'm coming from a country where turned down the pyramids were already cultivated in the 80s. When SAS Scandinavian Airlines had a really rebellious CEO, that he was a man with feminine qualities. So he's written one of the most popular management books called Moments of Truth.
Okay.
Jan Carlson, and he was my mentor for some years. And already then coming from there, he was so much before his time, and now it's happening in Spain. But in Spain, we are really behind if you compare it to Scandinavian countries.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is to bridge the cross borders, because I am working now with linking Nordic innovation and conscious brands to Barcelona ecosystem, and at the same time, it's like to invite these they were future thinkers then. To the table, and how can we do it now? Here, as we go. Oh,
good. It's so exciting though, isn't it? Because it's happening. It is
happening. I mean, can I tell you about our inner development
yes, please.
Goals project that actually is a very nice story, because inner development goals is this movement going around now, has been becoming global. It was born in Sweden, founded by, if I say all these strange names, people will not. But anyway.
Founded by some amazing people.
Some amazing people. Ekfärd Foundation, Erik Fernholm, 29K. And also the guy, Jakob, now I forgot his last name, that he was designing the sustainable UN goals that was founded in 2015 to put a structure to the challenges that we face with the global challenges. And if that is the what, the inner development goals are the how. Because in the what, the challenges are actually treated more like symptoms, because the root cause is not defined in them, because the root cause is, of course, us, the humans. Yeah. And in those science-based statistics and everything, they don't include values, compassion, all these, inner abilities. It's only out there as this we have to solve. And like Einstein said, the problems that are created in one consciousness cannot be solved in the same. Yeah. And this is what we have been trying to do since 2015, and with very disappointing results. And we still go on like, why can't we solve them? Because we are not connected with our inner perspective. And so now finally this has reached the scientists, and they are doing research on this and getting evidence out there how much it means that we have to go first have inner growth in order to have outer change. So Yes, and it's like, we think it's like so simple, but it's never been included in all these.
No, it hasn't.
World Forum and on these stages.
It hasn't.
Yeah, because it's more like, when this leadership program that I'm constructing now, it's about being a player or a victim. We've been so much in the victim that we are not part of the problem. But then you cannot be part of the solution either.
Yes, yeah.
With that attitude.
I think as well that victim thing comes from a little bit of apathy, where people are, they don't know what to do, right?
No.
Because the problem seems so huge
and overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it also includes a lot of discomfort.
Exactly.
This thing of the inner, because then, what do we find if we start looking inwards?
Exactly that. Yes,
because we are living this fast-paced lives, career, big ego. We are thinking from head to heart rather than from heart to head.
Yeah.
And all the old programming has been, created with fear-based consciousness.
Absolutely.
And scarcity mindset.
Yes, yeah.
So this management by fear is so out of date now. We have to start to embrace these organizations that think about, are we doing consciously here good for for the employees, for the environment, everything.
I mean, for
not only profit chase.
Right. This is the shift that needs to happen, I think. Right.
I think so.
Move away from it being all about extraction and start to be regenerative. Right.
Totally. And it's like we can talk about it, but now we have to also act on it.
Yeah. Do you know Otto Scharmer? Have you heard of that name? He's a guy that wrote the You Theory.
No.
It's
not Robin Sharma. No, it's not the same.
No.
Otto Scharmer. No, I don't.
I think he's German. I'm not sure, but I'll check and I'll put a link. Everything that we mentioned here, I'll put links so that the listeners can access what we've been talking about. But he wrote a book called The You Theory, and it's very much about how do we go from being extractive to being regenerative. How do we start operating from a different operating system, right? So, and he says that this thing that we have at the moment of being, for example, the way that you labelled it then was being a victim, or feeling apathetic, or also there's a level of denial, like I can't. This is not happening.
Exactly, it doesn't have anything to do with me in my life.
Yes, yeah.
It's so dangerous to think like that.
He talks about the fact that we're kind of starting to move out of that and start moving into something that's akin to like a collective depression, which I'm kind of the reason why this is a good thing is because it means that once we've reached that point, we are going to have to address the situation
and work with our shadows.
We are going to have to get in there and do it. And so actually the fact that we've come to this phase where it's so pressing, I mean it's so what we're living in right now is not sustainable, right? We all know that the conversations are happening much more universally, that there needs to be a change, a shift, and there are now lots of initiatives. I'm jumping in here. Okay, so there are a lot of initiatives coming from eminent leaders, economic thinkers, scientists, activists, all focused on taking strategic action that will address the huge gap between what we know and what we do, right? What I mean by this is that we have the technology, the knowledge, the money, or most really of what we would need to turn things around. I mean, combat climate crisis, combat the mental health crisis, combat the growing disparity in wealth distribution, and all of these, these sort of global issues that we're facing, and yet we don't do it, right? We just don't do it. And what needs to happen, as Otto Scharmer says, and as Jessika is eloquently explaining here, the work of the IDG, the Inner Development Goals, this is what is being dealt with, right? Like, how do you fix a problem from the same consciousness? to sort of echo Jessika's comment about Einstein, you can't fix a problem from the same consciousness that created the problem. So there needs to be an upgrade to a new operating system. We need to expand. We need to expand collectively, individually.
Yes, and people are starting to connect on an individual level.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Like taking more responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was zooming out here before because I was starting to talk about the inner development goals, and that the fact is that we have launched a business hub based on the inner development framework. And this is also a thing which appeals a lot to me. And I was thinking, I'm a partner of a Swedish startup called Verify that I'm bridging to Barcelona for their new establishment. And they launched this hub in Malmö, where I'm born from, actually, too. And I said, well, we have to bring this to Barcelona. If you get the content, and I will fix the partners. Okay, they said. So I made 5 calls in 1 week, and all partners said yes.
Yeah, because people.
So it's so aligned. And
yeah,
IKEA said yes on to how to feature how they implement inner development in their structure.
That's brilliant.
ESADE, which is the top business school here in Barcelona. Impact Hub Barcelona, which is the sustainable hub we have for impact in Barcelona. And then, of course, Verify and United Partners Network, which is a PR and company also represented in 50 countries. And so we just launched the first inaugurational event with IKEA featuring their showcasing on the theme being, because the IDGs, it's abbreviated IDGs, they have a framework with 5 dimensions: is being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. And then there is a skill set. This is an open source. So what they want is to people to just dive into it and apply it to their structures or create new things. This is the gift to the world.
Yes, yeah.
And it's starting to become massive. I mean, they invited, I think it was 4,000 scientists with a question, because how can we make people engaged? If you tell them, people will not listening. But if you give them a question and they start to figure out some answers, this is how you go forward. And this led to them creating the framework, which is amazing. And it was like the global survey now. It was 2020. It was launched, and now it's like on the survey last week, it was 2 million connecting live online to be part of it. 2 million people.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's really incredible.
Yeah.
And they want everybody to start these hubs. We wanted to specialize into the business because we want to aim to get hold of the leaders and get it into the organization.
Yes, yeah, it has to go high.
But then there is wider communities where it's from grassroots level with talks and workshops and excellent people that also is driving these conversations in different forums. So I think in Stockholm alone, they have 17 hubs.
Wow.
All niched in various areas.
So inspiring.
So we were the first business hub in Barcelona to implement this. Because, by implementing it, we believe that you accelerate any business to sustainable success.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Do you do communication training?
We could implement that.
Yeah, because I think that part of the problem is that people don't know how to talk to each other properly. They don't know how to speak to each other properly.
I mean, and all this is an invitation for people like yourself to say, hey, can we do a co-creation in a workshop in this?
Yeah.
Because, and then we find a space for it.
Because I think people get scared of conversations that are possibly... People, if they, because obviously what's happening is we're solving problems that we haven't had to solve before, right? And so we're obviously going to have, yes, that's exciting, great co-creation and come together. We can deep sense and work this out. But also there's going to be moments of conflict, and there's going to be moments of, well, no, I don't agree, or I don't. And people tend to get very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's how do we kind of give people the skills to be able to
have constructive
be comfortable there, it's just to be comfortable in discomfort, basically, right?
Yeah.
Right. So once you start doing that internal work on yourself, how does it manifest in the communication that you're having outside in the real world? How do you see? How does it?
If I share my story, it's really on an easy level of connection.
Do it.
No, I mean, not here now. I mean,
oh, come on.
Well, my entrepreneurial story goes back to that I was very career-paced, and I wanted to create a company in Barcelona and live my dream, and I thought I've always been very honest to myself within the knowledge that I know. But then it was just, working faster and faster, and the success came, and I was asked this question in the middle of it, are you really happy? And I was like, what? Well, I don't understand the question even. What do you mean, happy? I am happy, I think. And I was like on a kamikaze journey, chasing also profit to make it lift and da. And I forgot about myself in the whole thing. Also with limiting resources, if you have big investments, maybe you can go this track a little easier. I was self-made, so I started from scratch. And when you build it from scratch and it takes like a jump there, it goes faster and faster and faster. But in any way, I hit the wall because I started to feel not ease. So I was creating dis-ease. And that kind of, the body never lies.
The body never lies.
And it is our intuition. And how we perceive those signals, it's whether we have a good or bad intuition. But our body is our intuition. It knows everything.
Yep.
And so I was diagnosed with cancer in 2010. And I really had to make a full stop. And that was like, it was more scary to take that decision, full stop, than to start something with that when you don't have anything to lose. And now I had everything to lose, but I just couldn't function. I couldn't work. And that was a before and an after. And I wanted to go to the bottom with myself. Why did I drive myself so hard? What are the identification patterns that I picked up that are not even mine, maybe? And what are mine? What am I doing? Because it became like, instead of being in the heart space, it became an ego race. And then you're talking to a person who went to Buddhist monasteries, practicing Vipassana, really on this spiritual journey, look for myself. But then living in these big cities, I was a moment in New York and then came back to Stockholm and then I moved to Barcelona. It's like the cities and being hungry for success, trying to make it, you can get lost in that race.
Absolutely.
Thinking that you are still true to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was a boom, that stop. And then the road back to myself, trying to find, a bridge between what is my true being and want to do, and versus how can I make a living? I've created a life here in one business that I don't feel aligned at all with what I would love to do. So, and that has been an instilled balance to juggle all these things, because you're in the middle of life and you are changing gears. And I believe that if you, I introduce a lot of mindfulness, I do meditation on a daily basis again. I did for many years, then I lost it in all the stress. And I need to calm down my nervous system. It's also this, because we have a higher self, and we are connected to this higher consciousness. And when we lose that connection with ourselves, it's so easy to lose track in business as well. It's what I want to really make people understand, that if you can link your calling to your business and be conscious even in your business, not only in your private life. It's when you can make real success and create a life that you love.
Absolutely. And a life that will be good for future generations as well.
Of course.
We have to be able to think
sustainable.
about exactly that. We have to be able to think about what's coming after us, It's
Yeah,
not
and
just
to
about us at
find
all.
ways to, step back, ground yourself, do meditation, maybe micro meditations all through the day.
Yes, yeah, whatever it is,
But we are introducing this now with IDGs into the boardrooms.
That's great.
And we started the event with 3 conscious breaths, and then IKEA was having a meditation. And people there was like, oh, you can really do this. And they felt it. They
That's
live
really,
it. And
really cool.
yeah. So I think, this introduction between also making people feel it, not only talking about it, can make it take away the woo-woo stuff. Because, I mean, all these, it's founded in ancient indigenous, philosophies and methods, and they were practiced in those times. And then those times it was natural.
Yes.
And now we are in a totally another era.
Completely.
So we have to translate it into our time.
Yeah.
If not, they will look at it like nonsense.
Yeah.
But we are still human beings.
Absolutely that. Yes, yeah. So I'd like to add something here that I read after this interview, which blew my mind. So in ancient indigenous cultures, when they made decisions, they used to think about the impact that decision would have on 7 generations in the future. Isn't that wild? And it's this kind of wisdom that I would love to see introduced into our decision making now.
But it's like in ancient times we used to live from nature.
Yes.
And then we moved into living with nature. And now we have to live as nature. That is the step.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Oh.
No pressure.
No. No.
Actually, do you know what? Here, this is my last question. So I guess what I would like to ask you is advice that you would give to people, to listeners that are trying to find their authentic voice. They're trying to find a way to feel better, more comfortable with expressing themselves, with their personal power, with authenticity, with authority, authority in terms of this is who I am and my idea, and this is what I want to transmit to others. Like, what kind of advice would you give to our listeners on that level?
That is huge. I mean,
it is huge. Sorry.
But the cities have so many communities that if you start to look and scratch on the surface, there you can find, your tribe. I think everybody should go and look for their tribe in terms of, maybe some spiritual, where you can do meditation, yoga, or what is your breath work. And get into these kind of new groups, maybe outside your comfort zone. Look for entrepreneur settings. Maybe you are an intrapreneur, like with an entrepreneur mindset, but you're working in a corporation. So people find each other. Look, inner development goals, that's for sure. Because they are starting to be everywhere. And go to those sessions and meetings and co-creations and be part of that. And then also, like what IDGs are saying, that they are also looking for the culture and art, because that is also what's relating to the inner. So we need that in order to be able to create those visions that we need in order to progress.
Yes, yeah.
And endure this, like, tough walk we are doing. So in with more culture and art, because that is also opening up totally what we need. So people do more of that, learn a new instrument, do, these kind of things that you think it's lala. It's not so important because it doesn't necessarily have to be money related. But it has a bigger part in the whole thing than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's that, isn't it? It's learning about yourself in a different way, right? Connecting to yourself in a different way.
Yeah, and that can open up this inner relationship with yourself.
Yeah, and cultivate it.
Yeah,
And that can come through different spiritual activities or through, as you were saying, like
Yes.
connections to culture, art, whatever it may be, groups, people that you identify with. But it is actually, if you've got a little voice in you that is kind of saying, I know I'm not expressing my truth.
Exactly. And also dare
listen to it
to
and
slow down.
Start to,
To slow down, because
Yeah.
it's when we hear our inner voice and we can move faster. If you really slow down,
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
think that it's like a race and that you have to win that race by running faster. But the one who are smarter, because we don't have to work harder, we have to work smarter.
Exactly that.
So maximum impact to minimum effort.
Nice.
That is a good mantra.
There we go. And that is where we will end the show.
Okay.
Oh, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you too. That was cool.
That was super
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah.
So what did you think? I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I also hope that if English is your second language, or your third or your fourth, I really hope that this inspired you to be more vocal in English. You know, the world really needs you. Thank you again for listening. I really appreciate having you here. I think these conversations deserve to have as much visibility as possible, and you can really help with that by liking and subscribing. This is that moment. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much. And I'm sending you all a big power-filled hug. I hope you can feel that.